Hi. In today's video, Emma will take us on an unexpected journey through time. But before we dive into the story, I'd like to take a moment to explain some key vocabulary and expressions you'll hear. Understanding these words beforehand will help you follow the story more easily and feel more connected to it. Let's go over some important words and phrases. Heirloom. Heirloom is a noun that refers to something valuable that's passed down from generation to generation within a family. It's usually something with sentimental or historical value, like a piece of jewelry or furniture. The necklace is a family heirloom that's been in the family for years. My grandmother's ring is a precious heirloom. The heirloom clock has been with us for generations. Hooked. Hooked is an adjective that means you're really interested or fascinated by something. When you're hooked, you can't stop thinking about it or doing it, like being glued to a book or TV show. After the first episode, I was completely hooked on the show. She's hooked on that new video game. Once I started reading the book, I got hooked and couldn't put it down. Pour one's heart out. Pour one's heart out is an idiom that means to share your deepest, most sincere feelings with someone. When you pour your heart out, you tell someone everything you feel, especially when it's emotional or personal. He poured his heart out in the letter. She poured her heart out to her best friend after the breakup. During the conversation, he finally poured his heart out about his struggles. Comb through. Comb through is a phrasal verb that means to search through something carefully and thoroughly, usually looking for something specific. It's like going through all the details to find what you need. The detective combed through the evidence to find clues. She combed through old letters to find more about her family's past. We combed through all the data to find the answer. Kicker. Kicker is a noun that means a surprising or unexpected twist, usually at the end of a story. It's the part that shocks or surprises you after you thought you knew everything. Here's the kicker. She knew the truth all along. The kicker in the movie's plot left everyone speechless. The kicker is that he was hiding the secret the whole time. Now that you're familiar with these expressions, you'll be able to appreciate the story even more. So let's get started.
Hi, I'm Emma. And if you've ever found something from the past that completely changes your perspective, then you'll know exactly how I felt when I found the letter. It was supposed to be just a normal day, helping my family clean out my grandmother's attic, but it turned into an adventure I never saw coming. I thought I was just going to be sorting through dusty old boxes and maybe finding a few family heirlooms. Instead, I uncovered a secret love story that had been hidden for over 50 years. Let me tell you. It's romantic, heartbreaking, and full of surprises. It all started when I opened this small, wooden chest tucked away in a corner of the attic. Inside, among some old jewelry and trinkets, was an envelope. Yellowed with age and tied with a faded red ribbon. The handwriting was beautiful, and it said, "For Eleanor." Now, my grandmother's name was Grace. So this immediately had me wondering. Who was Eleanor? And why had this letter been kept hidden in my grandmother's things? My curiosity got the best of me, so I opened it up. As soon as I started reading, I was hooked. The letter was from a man named Edward, and it was the kind of passionate, heartfelt letter you only read about in books. He poured his heart out, saying how much he missed Eleanor, how he couldn't wait to see her again, and how she was the love of his life. I mean, it was intense. I had goosebumps just reading it. But I had to know. Who was Edward? And how did my grandmother end up with this letter? I rushed downstairs, letter in hand, and asked my mom if she knew anything about an Eleanor. She gave me a blank look. Eleanor? Never heard of her, she said. And that's when I knew. I was onto something big. Over the next few days, I became obsessed with finding out more. I combed through old photo albums, letters, and diaries. And then I found it. A journal entry from my grandmother, dated July 1963. In it, she wrote about a man named Edward. And here's the kicker. Edward was married. Married to a woman named Eleanor. My grandmother had been in love with him, but she couldn't bear to break up his family. She wrote, I love him with all my heart, but I can't be the reason his marriage falls apart. Can you imagine? She was madly in love with this man, but she walked away because she didn't want to hurt anyone. I couldn't believe it. My grandmother, who I had always thought of as this sweet, quiet woman, had lived through this incredible secret love story. It was like something out of a movie. After I found the journal, I couldn't stop thinking about her. How could she have kept this hidden for so long? And what happened to Edward? Did they ever see each other again? A few days later, I got the answers I was looking for. I spoke to one of my grandmother's old friends, Martha, who remembered the whole thing. She told me that my grandmother and Edward had one final meeting before they said goodbye forever. It was at a park under this giant oak tree. They talked for hours, knowing it would be their last conversation. My grandmother left that day, heartbroken, but determined to move on. And she did. She eventually met my grandfather and started a family, but she never forgot Edward. Hearing that story hit me hard. I always knew my grandmother was strong, but this was another level of strength. To walk away from the love of your life, knowing it's the right thing to do, even though it's the hardest, it's incredible. And now, every time I think of her, I see her in a completely different light. So what started as a simple day of attic cleaning turned into a journey into the past that I never expected. I framed the letter and keep it in my room as a reminder of my grandmother's love story, a story that almost disappeared forever. I'll always carry it with me, and it's changed how I see love, sacrifice, and the choices we make for the people we care about.